everyone. Thank you for joining us again. Today I have a fascinating, energetic, inspiring woman to share with you. Her name is Bonnie. Hi, Bonnie.
Hi.
How are you today?
Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Bonnie, a mutual friend of ours told me that she could sum you up as a fixer, someone who likes to make everything better. Can you tell me why she would say that?
So I have the privilege of having gone to college as an occupational therapist. And
Okay.
for those people who don't know the difference between occupational therapy and physical therapy, occupational therapy is a therapy designed to make a person as independent as possible, regardless of his or her disability. And so as a young person, I always wanted to fix things, make the world a better place. And I didn't want to be a doctor because they didn't get to spend much time with their patients. But an occupational therapist is someone who'd be able to see what was wrong and then help them be able to live their lives fuller, whether it was pediatrics or psychiatry or physical medicine. And so I sort of do that and have always sort of been willing to take charge, to guide and support. Sometimes it's not always fun to live with me because I will figure out that solution. If you tell me what the issue is, I'll give you at least one, if not two, ways to try and get around it, because there's so many ways to get someplace. You know, when you're trying to get to the mall, you can go left, you can go right, you could fly, but it's trying to find a way around to get where you want to be, to fix it.
And you've always been this way. You remember being a small child.
I remember one event when our family as teenagers had gone to a football game and the traffic was horrendous and nobody was doing anything. I mean, there were just nobody. And I had to be maybe 14 or 15, no bigger than I am now. And I said, I'll be back in a minute. And I took the flashlight out of the car and I went to where the backup was and I started directing traffic until our car got there, and then I got there, I put our car in there and I left. But otherwise we'd been sitting there for 20 minutes. And within about 15 minutes the traffic had started a pattern. So I just, there's an issue,
See
just
a problem?
go fix it.
You fix it. There you go.
My goal.
Let's talk about your career path, Bonnie. Take me on an oral tour of your resume.
So I had graduated as an occupational therapist, and at that time was married, and my ex-husband was relocating based on his career with the military and medical school, etc. So everywhere we went, I had to get a job, and fortunately occupational therapy is a really great career. There's so many opportunities, and it didn't matter what city we went to, I was able to secure some sort of employment in the field. So I started out as a hands-on clinician in a health center, and back in the day, so this is in the 70s, we used to have institutions where people with disabilities were housed by the state. So we had developmental disabilities, psychiatric disabilities, and my very first job was as an occupational therapist in a cottage for a state institution for at that time we called them the mentally handicapped or the retarded, and I had a couple of cottages. And then when my husband was transferred, I went and worked in an acute care hospital, and I worked in the rehab setting in an acute care hospital. So that was where regular medicine happened, where surgeries occurred. I had the privilege of working with Dr. Starzl with the first liver transplant patients in Pittsburgh. From there, I ended up working in a school setting because we relocated, and I was the occupational therapist for 14 different schools. And then we moved again, and I had the privilege of being an OT doing home care for children with disabilities. And again, I was in the state of New York, and there were houses. Instead of keeping people in institutions, there were houses where people could keep 4 or 5 adults with disabilities, and they would live kind of community. So I did that. And then I had the privilege of going to settle down in Pittsburgh, and I began my career not just being able to do OT, but I had students. And I believed that my philosophy was one of a good way to make the patients feel better, and so I taught the student. And then I became a director, and my goal was to have all of the staff kind of take that same vision and mission. So I became a director of OT, and I lived in Massachusetts. And then I had the privilege of being a director of a division where I had OT and PT and speech and rec therapy reporting to me. And again, that philosophy of caring and compassion and really looking at the needs, being person-centered, thinking about what the patient wanted, not what we wanted. So I kind of did that philosophy. And so I was able to influence about 200 or so staff people and all the patients they touched. And then 9/11 hit. And at that point, I was a director of an organization for the rehab program and was also responsible for multiple hospital systems in that organization, but I was also the cultural diversity chairperson. And that day really changed the world for a lot of folks.
Yes.
And I struggled with what I was doing and what we were doing and the way the world was, and I made the decision to go into consulting and have been now, I guess that's close to 18 years, and now have a private consulting firm that works with individuals to improve their organizational practices and to follow the best way they can operationally. I have the privilege of working with other individuals, but part of what I've done is also have the privilege of helping to try and make the world a better place and look and incorporate the class standards, cultural and linguistic appropriate standards for how we treat people who are different than ourselves, who don't look like you and me. So I made it part of my mission and vision to understand Latino and Hmong and Asian, and really had trainings that we made possible through the company I was working with at that time called New Populations. And we actually did the trainings for the state of Pennsylvania through the Department of Aging to help those people, those employees, better understand when they were working with African Americans or the Russian immigrants, and how they could change their practices to better meet their needs. So from there, I also had some time to do a little bit of creative issues. A couple of things in my career that have happened is, as an occupational therapist, and I also have the privilege of being a CARF surveyor, which is the Commission on Accreditation of Rehab, and I have the ability to survey organizations throughout the country to help them deliver care and meet certain standards. Well, one of the things that I saw not only in the hospital that I had run, but in hospitals throughout the country, is that when people are trained to come up and down the stairs, if they're using a wheelchair, there's no place to rest. Therapists would take a chair to the top of the stairs, and the wheelchair would be at the bottom, and they'd put the chair there, and the patient would rest, and then they'd go out and they'd leave the chair. And I remember, as the director of the department, getting the call from the fire chief saying, "Bonnie, there's a chair in the stairwell again." And that becomes a fire hazard. And so one of the things I decided to do...
Oh, let me hear it, Miss Fixer.
I decided to find a way to put a chair in the stairwell that would work. And it took me about 7 years after I began private consulting, and I created something called Easy Rest. Easy Rest retractable folding chair. It is a chair that attaches to the wall with 2 bolts, and 2 bolts to the floor. It folds down, and it's on a double spring system. It's weight tested to over 750 pounds, and it always folds back up. So you can put that in an area of refuge. It allows someone to sit and rest if they're coming downstairs, and when they get up, it automatically closes it. Every single time. It will always close. It's 100% metal. It's UHEL approved. And so it has been used in Canada, in hospitals, a couple of churches have put it in their bathrooms so that they could allow people a place to sit. The Canadians love it. Little less enthusiastic here in the United States, but I'm still working on it. Yeah, there's some regulations that some folks are struggling with, because you would not want it to block egress, which is why we say it works in areas of refuge. And we also believe that it needs to be in places where regular employees, not necessarily healthcare, but in a store where you have self-checkout and there's an employee who stands there watching you, they have to stand there for 8 hours. So this chair, again, would reach up against the wall, they could sit down and get up, and the chair would be out of the way. So it's only 3¼ inches wide. And So that is called Easy Rest, and now we call it Quick Seat. So we've
What a great
improved it.
invention.
I am waiting for someday for it to be even greater. To me, it is the
Yes.
next baby changing station. I mean, it's the same as people just
Right.
don't even know they need it.
Mhm.
But it's great if you're coming from a garage and you need to walk into a hospital and that long path. These would be a place that you could have it up against the wall where people could rest,
Mhm.
waiting for an elevator.
Mhm.
You don't want a chair in the way, but this would be a
Right.
great tool. So, quickseat.com.
I'm picturing my mother who has a difficult time walking. I mean, she uses a walker, but that's exhausting too.
Right.
So if she would have a place like that to sit,
Mhm.
it would be so helpful.
I agree.
She struggles.
It's
Yeah.
really hard. I mean, and if you think about the long hallways in the airport, where you
Mhm.
just want a place
Yes.
just to rest,
Mhm.
but you don't want to keep something in the way.
Right.
So that's what
Mhm.
someday I think there'll be
Mhm.
quick seat everywhere.
Mhm.
I'm hoping.
Yes, me too. For you.
Yeah. Well, and I hope for others
Mhm.
because it's not only. I mean, yes, I would love for it to
Mhm.
to be there, but I really do think people need it. It's
Mhm.
a tool that just so many places, including outside.
Mhm.
I mean, some of the pathways, it would be great
Right.
for people to be able to walk in the gardens and have a place to sit. Because it
Exactly.
attaches, we have a device so it attaches to a stand if somebody wanted,
Mhm.
or a tree, or a
Mhm.
fence.
Mhm.
So, pretty
I
easy.
used to think about that at Longwood Gardens. Wouldn't it
Mhm.
be nice to have a bench here or a place to sit
Right.
here? Especially for people who need it, you know,
Correct.
not just for fun, but
Right.
some people really need it.
Yeah.
So, okay, we were going down your career path.
So that quick seat, and then now I do consulting. I have the privilege of helping organizations just improve their practice, or
Mhm.
get ready for a survey, or
Mhm.
just get better at what they do. And
Mhm.
what's really lovely is when people hire us, they trust us and they share what the challenges are, and we will work with them to come up with a solution. And there's not just one way.
Mhm.
And what's really quite special is that when we've worked with companies, when our company BRB Consulting works with companies, and we have helped them create something, they will allow us to share it with others. So not only do they help themselves, but they enable us to share that information with others, and that's really cool. So it's not just all about them.
Right. And you work with huge organizations, right?
I've had I have had companies that are 3 people. I've had companies that have 3,000 people, employees.
Mhm.
It's the gamut. I've worked with providers who deliver opioid services to help people who are struggling with addiction, using methadone services. I've worked in behavioral health. I work in physical medicine and rehab, children and youth services. And it's just really, and employment services,
Right.
organizations that help people get jobs.
So I never realized occupational therapy was so far-reaching.
It's an amazing field. It is such a
Yeah.
great base because it's not limiting. You can choose to work with people with disabilities that are physical, psychiatric. It really is helping people reach their highest potential with their tools and knowing what to try and find for them.
Wonderful.
It's been a great base for me.
Yes.
Admittedly, I did go back and get my master's because occupational therapy is a base, but there's so much out there that I think education has to be ongoing.
Yes. That's true for any field. Yeah. So tell me about any other organizations you've been involved with.
So one of the areas I am most proud is that in some of my consulting work, I've worked with the Pennsylvania Association of Rehab Facilities, which is now called RCPA, which is the Rehab Providers of Pennsylvania. And one of the struggles for rehabilitation is children. Pediatric rehab is a very small part of rehabilitation in the big picture. You know about Medicare, and you hear about strokes, and you even hear about behavioral health. But children who suffer brain injuries or have developmental disabilities is a very, very small population. And one of the challenges is that there are limited providers. There are a few pediatric rehab hospitals in the country or in the world, and there's no way for them to talk to each other. So one of the privileges I've had was to work through the Pennsylvania Association of Rehabilitation and now RCPA to create what is now called the International Pediatric Rehabilitation Collaborative.
Wow.
It started out with my ability to network with folks from the southeastern region, people in New York, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware. As in my work at a local hospital where I was the administrator, I had these colleagues and we used to have a rehab forum. And what we decided was that we really needed to have the pediatric rehab forum talk with each other. So we began meeting every other month at actually at CHOP, Children's Hospital.
Okay.
And we brought people from Children's Institute in Pittsburgh, from Children's Specialized in New Jersey, from AI DuPont, from Mount Washington, Kennedy Krieger, the Hospital for Sick Children, HSC in Washington, D.C. And we began meeting to talk about the challenges. And I had the opportunity to be, I will call the, I call myself the nudge, but I was the facilitator. And 10 years ago, we actually created bylaws. And we were an organization of about 9 hospitals. Today, there are over 40 pediatric providers that now are a part of this, including one from Israel, Canada, Mexico. And what they do is provide education and assure that the people who are delivering rehab care to kids have the best information. So if one hospital has figured out a great protocol for children with concussion, it is shared. So it is a way to help educate providers who deliver care to children and really have a network of information, resources, and recognize how do we make sure that we protect them. With all of the funding reductions, this group is really out there saying, don't forget this very small population. So when you talk billions of dollars, don't forget that pediatrics is so important and that the dollar spent on a child today is really going to save money in the long run because they will become adults. And the cost of caring for them as they age without investing in the beginning is so much more. And so it's literally the iprc.info. And there's information for providers and there's information for families and education opportunities and just a great way to share knowledge.
Wonderful. So is it just information or are you creating standardized methods?
There are, as I said in occupational therapy, there are so many ways to get to them all. You can go right, you can go left. What the IPRC does is gather information, triage it, and share to make sure that what is happening out there, to offer great practices. There is not just one way. So it's a location for data, information. It's a resource. It is not necessarily the creator.
Okay, I see that, because every person, every patient is an individual. How can you? So Bonnie, you mentioned your invention with the chair that comes out from the wall. Have you created any other inventions?
So the very first invention I did was when I was a student, and I created a jar opener that you could do with one hand. Now there are lots of them and it never went anywhere. But as I aged, and in case you haven't noticed, I've got gray hair, actually I have platinum hair, I started not being able to see. I am wearing a pair of glasses around my neck. I put them on for reading and have found a need to have readers. When I first started readers, I put them everywhere in the house. They were everywhere. They were in the kitchen drawer and they would get scratched. And so I decided that I needed to find a place to put glasses. So I actually created a product called Stow and See. It is now called S&S.
Let's see it.
So Stow and See is a device that this symbolizes a wall or a counter or underneath. So the clear glass is there just so that you can see. It attaches with Velcro. And the device, if this is under the counter, you push the button, you drop it, and you put your glasses in here. So this is Stow and See. So it can be on a wall. It can be next to the bathroom where you put your readers on the wall.
Yes.
You can also, so that what's really cool about it is this, and also we've got it where there's a clip and it attaches to a visor. But I also really like it behind a bed where you would keep things you might need in the night in case you became passionate and you didn't want to have things hidden.
Oh.
I have a friend who put this next to her computer for all of her little wires because she didn't like her wires for her iPhone. So
Okay.
she would tuck it in there.
Yes.
So Stow and See is available on Amazon. We
It
actually have a
is.
website, SNS for you, SNS, Stow and See for
Okay.
you, the number,
Okay.
.com.
I can put this in my store that I'm starting.
That would be great.
Yes,
So Stow
I'll
and
be an
See.
affiliate. Yes.
And then what's really cool is, so I started out with plastic and this, but then a friend of mine had big glasses, and this doesn't hold big glasses. So we actually have a new version. I only have a sample here. We have a cloth version that is in camo, hot pink, brown, and black, and it has little clips and it attaches, and you can get a bigger version. And we also created one because I really worry about safety.
Right.
So as an occupational therapist, I had the opportunity to work with not chainsaws, power tools,
Yes.
saws, table saws, and you should wear safety goggles with them every time. So we
Okay.
actually created a Stow and See Max that has magnets that attach to those devices, and safety goggles fit in them. So we actually sell Stow and See Max in a very large, that awful green, the security green that you can
Well,
see
they
from
can find
everywhere.
them.
They can find
Yes.
them, and gray. So we have those available. So I really want to protect eyes, and
Yes.
so I have my Stow and See in the kitchen,
Yes.
the bathroom, and everywhere. And anyone who wants
Very
one, it's a great little
cool.
Christmas present. It's
So
under 20
you
bucks.
continue being the fixer,
I keep
finding
trying.
solutions to everything.
I
Yes.
have, it's not so much being a fixer, but it's really making sure. So I have my background is as a nice Jewish girl, and part of the mission of Judaism is tikkun olam, to repair the world. And so I really work when I can to repair the world. And these just happen to be products that have been there, but on a personal level, it really is trying to repair the world.
And speaking of being Jewish, I know you're a volunteer, a very dedicated volunteer to your synagogue. What do you do there?
So I am now a past president, but I did serve on the board for over 20 years and was president several years ago. And I still volunteer with part of our synagogue has the ability to provide a grant, and we offer funds to a group called FUSE, the Fellowship of Urban and Suburban Engagement, which is a group of individuals who are committed to try and fix the world, work with our neighbors, and we call it FUSE, the Fellowship of Urban and Suburban Engagement, and we really are looking at taking folks from the suburban community, from the urban community, helping them learn to relate to each other and better understand each other, because it's just a different world, and we
Very.
don't often have the opportunity
Right.
to meet people who are not in our neighborhoods. So fusedelco.com is
Okay.
our website, and people can go. We hold conversations. We call them courageous conversations. We talk about bigotry. We talk about the differences in our neighborhoods. And it's hard. Sometimes we really have to lean in to some very difficult conversations.
Very important, though. I don't know if anyone knows, but years ago I was a teacher, a special ed teacher.
Wow.
And I taught in a residential school outside of media. Most of the students there were shipped in from Philadelphia, and they had a lot of delinquency and dependency issues. But for me, this white girl from suburbia, to get this job in this environment, it was so shocking, but just so awesome to meet this other culture. I loved it. I loved all the people. I loved learning about them. I appreciate it, their plight, and it brought me more understanding of what they've been through and why they feel the way they do. But it can't stay that way. It needs to be healed, and then solutions and peace need to be made between the two.
And you hit it right there. It's you didn't know about their plight. And
No.
there is one evening we were having a courageous conversation, and the question asked was, tell me what's the worst thing about your neighborhood. And so the suburban person said, it is so frustrating. I go outside and people don't pick up their dog poop. It is so frustrating that we have to deal with dog poop. And someone from an urban neighborhood said, I cannot let my child play outside because there's gunfire outside of my door. And when I hear a pop, I don't think it's a car. I
Right.
think it's a gun.
Right.
And the dichotomy of dog poop versus gunfire and not being allowed to have your child play outside, that inequity, those differences, to your point, is we have to find ways to
Right.
fix this. How do we engage community? How do we engage each other to repair the world? To try and find a way to have common conversations and
Yes.
to really work to make it better, to fuse.
Well, that is a great start.
We're
So
trying.
much more has to be done.
There is.
Nationally, worldwide. It's really,
It starts one to one.
yes,
One
that's
person at
right.
a time, each person making a difference. And I really do believe that, and that's part of how I've chosen to exist in today's world.
Wonderful.
Thank
I keep saying that, but everything you say is just wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Your energy. It
What?
Yes, it has to be metabolism, right?
I don't know where it comes from. I am an early riser, and I'll stay up till, I'm up by 5:45. I will sleep late, and it's 7 o'clock, and that's hard. I'm usually out of bed by 6:30. There is no one else in my family like this. No one knows where I came from. My mother
just born this
swears it's
way.
fine.
Yeah.
But I do have a lot of energy.
Right.
And
Now, some people have a lot of energy, and they need a way to channel it, to do great things like you're doing. Do you have any advice or wisdom to share about that? Do you have any secrets?
so I have two great kids. One daughter who's adopted, and I love that she's my daughter, and she is 6 feet tall with dark brown hair, and I love when people say, oh, she looks just like you. Well, I'm not
my
standing,
gosh.
but I'm 5'1", and
Yes.
there's nothing dark about my hair. It was blonde before. But my son is, in many ways, does sort of resemble me. And one of the things he said he has learned from me is, I finally figured it out, Mom. If I can do the job in 10 minutes, just do it. Don't let it go. Just get it done and move on. If you can finish it in 10 minutes or less, do
Yes.
it. Don't wait.
Right.
And I do believe the fact that says, if you want something done, ask a busy person, because they'll figure out how to fit it in.
Yes, I've heard that. And it's true.
It is.
Yes.
And sometimes I feel bad when I multitask. If, I'm on the phone and I might look at an email and I haven't given that person my full and undivided attention. So I struggle with that. I think many of us do. I am truly very dedicated, even though I am self-employed. I am at my desk by 8 o'clock, and I rarely leave before 5:30 or 6. I don't typically take a lunch break. I will eat at my desk, and I have pretzels there and I have nuts there. So if I don't get away, I'm able to at least get some of that. But I really do believe in giving that time to my work, whether I'm doing reading, and I do set certain times apart. So even for today, my last client was at 2 o'clock, and I booked them from 2 to
Okay.
4, and at 4:30 I was going to be finished, but I gave myself that window to sort of wrap up and finish whatever needed to be done.
Right.
I really try by the end of the day to have my task. I mean, I have books, I have my task list, I have my phone list, and I have the project that has to be done first thing in the morning. And I do live by a
Get
calendar.
things done, yes.
Get it done.
Okay.
I write things down.
Yes, okay, that's very helpful, especially as we age.
I don't remember stuff. I feel bad when people say,
I'm
"Oh,
getting
hi,
worse.
Bonnie. Nice to see you." And I'm like,
Oh,
"Who are you?" You're Fred, right? I'm sorry, Rose.
yes.
How do I know you?
Okay, aside from work, what 3 things do you enjoy doing when you're not working? When you're off the clock?
When I'm off the clock,
Yes.
I have a book club. I'm in a book club.
Okay.
And I do really love to read. And I think, our book club's a little different from what I hear others. We don't typically drink wine. We actually read the book. I mean, we talk about our lives and share things, but we actually read the book. And we have read things I would never have read before. One of the benefits of this is for each person to bring something different. And we've read historical fiction, and we've read nonfiction, and we've read a little bit of that scary stuff. And it's just a great way to expand
Right.
our
Open your
minds.
mind. Yeah.
And I truly enjoy the women that are in this book club. So I like
That's
to read.
fun. Okay, that's one.
That's one. I knit before I became president of the synagogue. I used to knit a lot.
Okay.
And then I used to knit at meetings, and I thought it would be tacky if I was knitting trying to run a meeting. So at some point I will pull my knitting back.
Okay. You enjoy
Not
that?
I do. I
It's
did enjoy
therapeutic.
it. It's fun.
Mm-hmm.
I like to do yoga, so I do a little bit of yoga, and I love yard sales and antique shops. I just think finding what others have used and reusing it is just really fun. And yes, modern things are great, but I just think there's so much beauty, and just cool to see how things used to be done.
Right. And just by looking around your house, I see that you appreciate art. Yes. You collect it, you create it.
I have, I call it art. It's not the most expensive, but if it draws me, and a piece of wood when we've traveled, or the ability to find a bowl that somebody handmade with a piece of stone or a shell from New Zealand, and when you use that, it's like, oh, remember in New Zealand when this happened, or even as simple as going to Maryland and picking up a tile that then goes into the yard that says, oh, that was from Maryland. It's really embracing those simple day-to-day things.
And one thing I want to show on the screen is that artwork you have in your front yard. That sculpture of the woman.
I didn't make her, but we did.
Yes.
I call her Spritzy. And Rose was kind enough to design our yard, our landscaping, and you said you've got to find 2 pieces of art. And as part of my mission, I do like a mission, walking and hunting and trying to find it. And one day we were literally in Ocean City at their street fair.
Perfect.
Came down, and I stopped, and Deb said, what? And I said, that's it. And Spritzy is, this tall, and they had little ones, but she's just this piece of art with a rock for a head, and she was silver. She's now rusted, and I like her rusted.
Yes.
She's enjoying life.
She's awesome.
And
you can see her now on the screen. Isn't she so cool?
and sometimes I admit Spritzy gets a hat.
Oh, okay.
So in the winter it was really cold, and
personality
Spritzy had a little purple hat to keep her rock head warm.
Okay, very
and she may
cute.
get a hat for Halloween.
Okay.
She may. She's got a little tiny head though.
The neighbors will love that. Something to look forward to. Yes.
Correct. So Spritzy's great. So thank you.
I do have some quick questions for you.
Sure.
Okay, what's a weird habit of yours?
I don't know if it's weird, but don't make me kill you till I've had my coffee.
Okay.
I am a very big coffee drinker, and I have an automatic brew, and I hit the button and I take the very first swig that comes out of it. So when that pot's got 2 tablespoons, it's mine. I drink it.
Okay. What's your favorite breakfast?
Favorite breakfast? A bialy with cream cheese and whitefish.
Yummy. Oh, Jewish.
Jewish girl.
The whitefish.
Gotta have
There you go.
A bialy, not a bagel.
One of my favorite Jewish treats is halva.
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 Oh, made with sesame seed.
Oh,
it's a
so
great treat.
good.
It's so good.
Yes.
Yes, I happen to have some in the refrigerator.
Oh, really?
I would
oh,
share.
No, I'm on a healthy new lifestyle plan here. One taste and it will just set me off.
Okay.
But I used to really enjoy that. Okay, what's one thing you hope to do before you die?
I hope to do. Well, I really do enjoy traveling, and I'm hoping to go to Africa. I would like to go to Spain. I would like to go to Greece. And I would like to see the Tetons.
Wonderful. You'll do it.
I'm
I know you
hoping.
will. Yes. What is your most used phrase?
My most used phrase. Y'all.
Y'all. Okay. Okay.
Thank you, and I'm sorry. I'm really okay with apologizing.
Okay.
I'm good to say I'm sorry.
Yes. Yeah. Me too. Do you prefer sunrises or sunsets?
Definitely a sunrise.
Sunrise.
Yeah.
Of course.
The
you're
days
the
in
early
front of me got
riser.
things to do.
And one last question. Are you a good singer?
Absolutely not.
No. Oh, okay. I was going to ask you to sing a little tune if you thought you were.
No, my kids in services used to say, "Mommy, please don't sing."
Oh.
It was awful. I could pray, but don't sing. No, terrible singer. But thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you. It was really so nice to get to know you better.
It was lovely, Rose. Thank you for
Yes,
inviting me to share this with
okay.
you.
Thank you.
It was fun.
Bonnie. Yes, it was.
Thanks.
Okay, I really appreciate it. We'll see you, everybody.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for watching. Hope you learned a few things from this special guest. Please like and subscribe, and most importantly, share this video with others who you think might enjoy it. And remember, if you or someone you know would like to share your real stories, please message me. Don't be shy. Then I can keep sending more remarkable women your way. Bye for now. Come back often.